Camila had worked the night shift at San Vicente Hospital for nearly 3 years, pushing her cleaning cart through dimly lit hallways with the kind of grace that only comes from repetition and necessity. At 26, she had memorized the rhythm of the hospital, the creak in the floor outside the pediatric wing, the stubborn light switch in the staff lounge, the fact that room 204 always had a draft because someone left the window cracked open. She wasn't just a cleaner. She was a silent witness to life and death, hope and despair, all unfolding behind the sterile white doors she scrubbed every night. Most of the medical staff didn't even see her anymore. Not really. She was part of the background, a ghost with a mop and gloves. But Camila saw everything. She noticed the patterns others missed. She knew that the night nurse in pediatrics liked her coffee with 2 sugars. She knew that Dr. Enrique always forgot his mug in the break room. And she knew, without a doubt, when something felt off. That instinct, the one that had kept her out of trouble and her siblings fed, kicked in the moment she was reassigned to the 3rd floor, the ICU. It was tense there, quieter than the rest of the hospital. But the silence didn't mean peace. It meant vigilance. Camila didn't argue when Donna Rosa, her supervisor, asked her to cover for a sick co-worker. She simply nodded, adjusted her route, and wheeled her cart into the elevator. What she didn't know was that one night, one decision, and one observation would change her life forever, and might just save someone else's. The 3rd floor felt different the moment she stepped off the elevator. Even for a unit that thrived on discretion and hushed tones, there was an unusual tension in the air. Nurses were clustered near the central station, their voices low and urgent. The light above room 312 blinked steadily, casting a rhythm that made her chest tighten. Camila moved with purpose, wiping surfaces, scanning the environment, always keeping her ears open. Through the cracked door of 312, she heard it, voices rising, sharp and panicked. "Rodrigo, are you certain about the dosage?" came a voice she recognized from passing shifts. Dr. Felipe Santos, the night shift physician known for his precision and calm under pressure. 40 years in this job, doctor." "I know what I'm doing," replied a gruffer voice. Rodrigo, one of the senior nurses. Camila froze for a moment, heart pounding. She wasn't supposed to listen, but how could she not? Something was wrong. She heard the urgency rise, then silence, then hurried footsteps. Dr. Santos exited the room, his usually composed face creased with worry, heading to the nurse's station. Rodrigo lingered, then emerged, looking pale, twitchy, fiddling with his coat pocket. Camila, pretending to clean near the medication cart, noticed him discard a small vial into the hazardous waste bin. She didn't want to look, but she did. And when she did, her breath caught in her throat. The label read, "Morphine, 10 milligram. A dosage mistake? An overdose?" Her sister Anna, a nursing student, had often studied with her at the kitchen table. Through those late-night sessions, Camila had picked up more than she realized. She knew that the wrong amount of morphine could kill a person. Standing there, holding a mop in one hand and a secret in the other, Camila had a choice to make, one that would test everything she thought she knew about courage, justice, and her place in a system that barely noticed her existence. Camila tried to push the thoughts aside and return to her duties, but the image of the morphine vial haunted her. As she scrubbed the hallway floor, her mind raced. What if she was wrong? What if Rodrigo had a valid reason for discarding that vial? But something about his behavior, the nervous glances, the way he avoided the other staff, it gnawed at her. She had developed a 6th sense working nights at San Vicente. It was the same instinct that helped her navigate grief when her parents died, that helped her stretch every reel to feed Anna and João. And tonight, that instinct screamed at her. Something wasn't right. Later, while she wiped down the glass table in the break room, she overheard 2 nurses whispering about room 312. "The patient's vitals are dropping," one said. "Dr. Santos is doing everything he can, but it's not looking good." Camila's pulse quickened. It was happening. Whatever had gone wrong in that room was unfolding in real time, and she was the only one who had seen that vial. At 5 a.m., her shift nearly over, she passed by room 312 once more. The door was open wider now. Inside, a middle-aged man lay surrounded by machines, tubes snaking from his arms and nose. His wife sat beside him, clutching his hand, tears falling silently onto the bedsheets. Camila paused just outside the room, her chest tight with guilt and indecision. Then, as she waited for the elevator, Dr. Santos joined her. He looked exhausted, his white coat stained with coffee and stress. "Rough night, doctor?" she asked, surprising even herself. He turned to her, surprised that a cleaner would break the unspoken rule of silence. Yes, he said quietly. Sometimes we lose patience and don't really know why. Camilla hesitated, heart pounding. This was her moment, but fear held her back. He won't be okay, she said softly, eyes downcast. Dr. Santos looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. You're Camilla, right? Night shift cleaner? He asked. She nodded, unsure of where this was going. You were working the third floor tonight? She nodded again. Did you notice anything unusual? The question hit her like a thunderclap. This was her chance, the opportunity to say what she saw, to tell the truth, but the weight of consequences crushed her resolve. What if she was wrong? What if she accused someone with decades of experience and was mistaken? Who would believe her, a janitor, over a veteran nurse? No, sir. Just seemed like a tough night, that's all, she said, her voice flat. Dr. Santos didn't press. He studied her for a moment longer, as if trying to read something behind her tired eyes. You seem to know a lot about how things work around here. Have you worked in healthcare before? No, doctor. Just pick things up. My sister's in nursing school, she replied almost defensively. He nodded slowly, thoughtful. Interesting. The elevator doors opened and they both stepped in. The ride was quiet, but heavy with unspoken tension. Camilla exited first, feeling his gaze linger for just a second longer than necessary. As she walked to the bus stop in the still dark dawn, the questions began to pile up again. If the patient died, could she live with the guilt? And if she spoke up and was wrong, what would happen to her job, her siblings, their fragile stability? Back home, Anna was already awake, buried in nursing textbooks. How was your shift? She asked. Camilla poured herself a cup of coffee and sat down. Weird. Hey, Anna. If someone overdosed on morphine, what would happen? Anna looked up, curious. Depends. If it's too little, the pain continues. If it's too much, respiratory failure, coma, even death. Why? Camilla stared into her coffee, her voice barely audible. Just curious. Camilla couldn't shake the image of the vial, nor the way Rodrigo had fumbled nervously with his pockets. As the day wore on and sunlight streamed into the kitchen, she sat beside Anna and decided to speak. Carefully, she described the night's events. The tense exchange between Dr. Santos and Rodrigo, the patient's deterioration, the vial labeled morphine tenming that she had seen discarded, and Rodrigo's odd behavior. She left out names but laid out the facts clearly. Anna listened closely, her brows knitting tighter with every detail. Camilla, that's serious, Anna said. If he administered the wrong dose, it has to be reported. Camilla felt her stomach twist. But I have no proof. Just what I saw and overheard. And what if I'm wrong? Anna took her sister's hands. And what if you're right? If you stay silent and that man dies? Or worse, if it happens again? The gravity of it pressed against Camilla's chest like a weight she couldn't lift. She had spent years surviving, working to support Anna and João, sacrificing sleep and comfort just to keep them fed and educated. Could she risk it all now? One misstep and she could lose her job, her only source of income. But doing nothing also had a cost, one that might be measured in someone else's life. That afternoon, she tried to rest before her next shift, but sleep evaded her. Her dreams were full of beeping monitors and blurred faces. When night fell again, and she returned to São Vicente, the first thing she did was check the board at the third floor. Room 312, still occupied. Stable? A nurse whispered near the elevator. Relief flooded her, but it didn't last long. The consequences were still looming, and her conscience wouldn't allow her to forget what she had seen. That night, Camilla worked with a sharper focus. Every sound, every movement seemed amplified. She cleaned with her usual precision but paid special attention to the behaviors around her, especially Rodrigo's. He was back on shift, but something had changed. His face was tense, his movements more deliberate, his glances more evasive. He didn't speak to anyone unless necessary, and Camilla noticed how he carefully avoided eye contact with other nurses, especially the more experienced ones. Around 2 a.m., as she mopped near the nurses' station, she overheard a conversation between two staff members. Dr. Santos is still looking into the 312 case. One murmured, thinks there might have been a dosage error. The other responded, Rodrigo, that's impossible. He's been here longer than any of us. Camilla froze. So she wasn't the only one who suspected, but they were still hesitating, still unsure. The question now burned in her chest. Should she add her voice to the growing concern? Could her testimony, however small, be the missing piece? The rest of her shift was a blur of activity and overthinking. She watched Rodrigo like a hawk, noticing how he handled medication, how he scribbled on charts, and how he seemed to double-check the hall every time he moved near the storage cabinet. At the end of her shift, Camilla made a decision. She couldn't live with herself if she stayed quiet and something worse happened. She waited near the parking lot, her heart hammering, until she spotted Dr. Santos heading toward his car. "Doctor?" she called. He turned, surprised. "Camilla? Is something wrong?" She swallowed hard. "About our conversation yesterday. I think I saw something important." Dr. Santos paused, instantly alert. "Tell me everything." Under the dim, flickering light of the parking lot, Camilla laid everything out. Her voice trembled at first, but with every detail, she gained confidence. She told Dr. Santos about the vial she found in the hazardous waste bin, how she had recognized the label, how Rodrigo had consulted something at the medication cart just before disposing of it. She described his anxious demeanor, the exchanges she overheard, the mounting tension that permeated the ICU corridor. Dr. Santos listened carefully, never interrupting, his expression grave. "Are you certain about the vial?" he asked once she finished. "Absolutely, doctor. Morphine, 10 milligrams. I read it twice." He nodded, the weight of her words settling between them. "Camilla, what you're sharing is serious. If it's true, this could have dangerous implications, not just for the patient in room 312, but for any patient under Rodrigo's care." Camilla's hands were clenched together, knuckles white. "I know. I hesitated because I'm just a cleaner. No one takes people like me seriously." Dr. Santos's voice was low but firm. "Not anymore. What you've done, what you've chosen to tell me, it takes guts. I'll need to confirm your account before moving forward. But if there's an investigation, will you cooperate?" The word investigation made her stomach flip. That could mean scrutiny, retaliation, attention, things she had avoided her entire life. "Doctor, I need this job. I support my siblings." He nodded, his voice softening. "I understand. But if Rodrigo did what we suspect, more lives could be at risk." Camilla inhaled slowly, every nerve in her body screaming in conflict. Then she nodded. "I'll help. Just please be careful." Dr. Santos handed her his card. "This is my direct line. If you see anything else, call me. Anytime." As he walked away, Camilla stood frozen, the card in her hand burning with the weight of responsibility. The next few days transformed Camilla's world. No longer did she move invisibly through the halls of the hospital, at least not in her own mind. Every shift, she became a silent observer, cataloging Rodrigo's behavior with new intent. She started noticing patterns that once seemed harmless. Rodrigo volunteered for late-night shifts when supervision was low. He avoided certain nurses, especially the meticulous ones, and seemed overly defensive when questioned about his routine. Camilla watched from a distance, blending in with her mop and gloves, just another shadow on the periphery of hospital life. But inside, she was alert, focused, ready. 2 weeks after that fateful night, the confirmation she feared and needed came. During a sudden emergency in room 307, Camilla was nearby, cleaning the hallway. She saw Rodrigo rush in with medication, preparing it without checking the patient's chart. She watched, heart pounding as he administered the dose, then quietly altered something on the handwritten log. Minutes later, the elderly woman inside began to struggle. The machines beeped urgently. Nurses swarmed the room. This time, Camilla didn't hesitate. She stepped aside, pulled out the doctor's card from her pocket, and dialed the number. "Dr. Santos, it's Camilla. Please come to the 3rd floor, now." Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled. When he arrived, she recounted everything she had just witnessed. This was no longer a suspicion. It was a pattern. Within 24 hours, an official investigation was launched. Camilla gave a formal statement, recounting every incident she had observed. Under pressure, Rodrigo broke. He confessed to skipping protocols out of fear that his declining memory and aging hands would make him seem unfit to retire with dignity. His shortcuts, though not malicious, had caused multiple patient complications. Miraculously, no one had died. Yet, Camilla's testimony had stopped a dangerous trend. But as word spread, she realized something else. Doing the right thing doesn't always mean being celebrated. Camilla had never been the center of attention before, and she quickly learned it wasn't always a comfortable place to be. After the investigation became public knowledge, Her role in it spread like wildfire through the hospital corridors. Some staff praised her courage. Others, however, were less kind. There were glances that lingered a little too long, whispers that stopped when she entered a room, and passive-aggressive remarks disguised as jokes. Easy to point fingers when you don't wear a badge, one technician muttered within earshot. Even those who supported her often did so in hushed tones, as if her act of integrity carried contagion. Clara, a nurse from the pediatric ward, caught her in the hallway and said softly, "You did the right thing." Rodrigo was getting reckless. Someone had to speak up, but then there were others, like Sonia from the surgical team, who made no effort to hide their disapproval. 40 years of service and he's thrown under the bus by someone who scrubs floors, she scoffed. The words stung more than Camilla cared to admit. She tried to focus on her work, to drown out the noise, but the tension followed her like a shadow. One afternoon, Donna Rosa called her into the supervisor's office. "Camilla, we need to talk about some changes in your schedule," she said gently. Camilla's heart sank. Because of everything going on, some folks feel uncomfortable. It might be best to reassign you to another area temporarily. Camilla stared at her supervisor, disbelief and disappointment swirling in her chest. "But I only did what was right. I protected a patient." Donna Rosa nodded, genuinely sympathetic. "I know, Kirita. You did good, but you also disrupted the harmony. That's just how things are." When she was told she'd be transferred to the hospital's basement laundry and sterilization area, it felt like exile. Same pay, same hours, but out of sight and far from where she had made a difference. The basement of the hospital was a world apart, claustrophobic, loud, and isolated. The humming of industrial machines replaced the beeping of monitors, and the chemical smell of detergent overpowered the usual sterile hospital scent. Camilla's new reality was all heat and labor, loading soiled linens into massive washers, sterilizing surgical tools, and organizing trays of sanitized equipment. Her new supervisor, Marta, was a gruff woman in her 50s with tired eyes and a blunt tone. "So you're the famous Camilla," she said without venom, but also without warmth. "The one who brought down Rodrigo." Camilla opened her mouth to explain, but Marta cut her off. "Don't bother. I've been around long enough to know he was slipping. Someone had to act. Now let's get you set up." Despite the physical exhaustion of the job, what wore on Camilla the most was the feeling of being buried, literally and metaphorically. For the first time in years, she wasn't near the patients. She couldn't observe anything meaningful. She felt silenced and punished for doing the very thing that had once made her proud. At home, Anna noticed the change. "They moved you because of the report, didn't they?" she asked one night. Camilla tried to deflect, but Anna wasn't fooled. "That's retaliation. You should file a complaint." "With what lawyer? With what money?" Camilla replied, bitterness creeping into her voice. Sometimes doing the right thing has a cost. Still, she showed up each night, covered in sweat and sterilizer, pushing through the exhaustion. 3 weeks into her reassignment, while operating the autoclave, she heard footsteps behind her. Turning, she saw Dr. Santos standing at the entrance. "Doctor, is something wrong?" she asked. He looked uncomfortable, out of place in the dim, metallic setting. "Actually, I came to see you." And what he said next would once again shift the course of her life. "Doctor." Santos stepped further into the room, his expression serious but not unfriendly. "Camilla, I heard about your reassignment. I'm sorry. It's unfair. You should be recognized, not hidden away in the basement." She wiped her hands on her apron, trying to mask her surprise. "It's temporary, apparently," she said, attempting a casual tone, though the disappointment was still fresh in her voice. He looked around the room, then back at her. "Look, I'm not here just to commiserate. I came because I have a proposal." Camilla's brows knitted in confusion. "A proposal?" "Yes," he said, stepping closer. "The hospital is launching a new quality and safety initiative. We need someone on the night shift with a sharp eye. Someone who notices what others miss. Someone like you." Camilla's heart skipped. "But I'm not qualified. I don't have a degree." Dr. Santos shook his head. "You have the most important qualification. You care, and you act when it matters. Everything else we can teach." He handed her a sheet of paper. It was an official offer, an auxiliary position in the hospital's quality assurance team. Better pay, flexible hours, and best of all, training and technical courses paid by the hospital. Camilla stared at the paper, her eyes wide, her hands trembling slightly. "Why me?" she asked quietly. Dr. Santos smiled. "Because talent like yours shouldn't be wasted in the shadows. And because we need people like you where they can make a difference." Camilla looked down at the offer, then back at the autoclave. For the first time in weeks, she felt hope stir. The possibility of not just surviving, but growing. That night, Camilla returned home with the paper clutched tightly in her hand. Anna and João were at the kitchen table, helping each other with schoolwork, the way they always did. Camilla stood silently for a moment, soaking in the image. Her siblings, safe and focused, living the life she had fought for them to have. "What's that?" Anna asked, noticing her expression. Camilla sat down and explained everything. The surprise visit, the offer, the chance to be something more than a cleaner, more than a silent observer. Anna's eyes lit up with excitement. "Camilla, this is amazing. You've always had an eye for these things. You always helped me study like you were the one in school." But Camilla's voice was hesitant. "It's a big leap. What if I can't do it?" João, who had been quiet, looked up from his books. "Mana, you face down a nurse with 40 years of experience. You can handle anything." They laughed softly, but his words carried truth. Anna added, "And with the higher salary, you could even start saving for your own studies, nursing or even medicine. Who knows?" The idea made Camilla's chest tighten. It felt too big, too far. She had buried those dreams long ago, but maybe it wasn't too late to unearth them. The next morning, she met with Dona Rosa. "So you're leaving us?" her supervisor asked with a bittersweet smile. "Not leaving, just moving up," Camilla replied. Dona Rosa nodded. "I've always respected you, Camilla. What happened with Rodrigo and how you handled it, that took strength. This next step, you deserve it." Camilla thanked her, then made her way back to the basement for one last shift. Marta greeted her with a rare smile and a surprise, a small homemade cake. "For your promotion," she said. "Knew you wouldn't stay down here for long." For the first time in a while, Camilla felt truly seen. Camilla started her new role the following week, stepping into a world she had only glimpsed from the margins. The quality and safety team was small but focused. Nurses, analysts, and administrative staff working together to reduce risks, improve procedures, and catch flaws in real time. On her first day, Dr. Santos introduced her to the team. "This is Camilla Oliveira," he said with quiet pride. "She knows this hospital better than most and sees things others don't. She'll be our night shift quality assistant." Some team members nodded politely. One or two raised skeptical brows. But the team leader, Sophia, a seasoned nurse with over 20 years of experience, extended her hand with a warm smile. "Glad to have someone who knows how things really work when the lights are low," she said. Camilla spent the first few weeks absorbing everything: protocols, documentation systems, safety audits. It was intense. Most of the technical terms were new, but she took notes obsessively, studied after her shifts, and asked questions without shame. Dr. Santos would occasionally check in. "You're picking this up quickly," he remarked one evening. "It's challenging," she replied, "but also the first time I've felt like I'm contributing on another level." And she was. Within her first month, she helped identify a recurring gap in the night medication handoff. Her recommendation, a simple checklist, reduced near misses significantly. Her shifts were no longer filled with just the scraping of mops or the hum of sterilizers. Now, they included real influence, real change. One night, Camilla and Sophia reviewed patient records from earlier that week. "You have a natural eye for risk," Sophia commented. "Where'd you learn that?" Camilla smiled faintly. "From years of being invisible but watching everything." She was no longer invisible now, and that visibility came with both opportunity and responsibility. Her new schedule offered a mix of night and early evening shifts, along with daytime meetings. For the first time in years, Camilla wasn't constantly exhausted. She spent more mornings with Anna, helping her study for nursing exams, and more dinners with João, who was finishing high school and starting to talk about university. During those quiet evenings at home, Camilla found herself daydreaming about returning to school, studying nursing like Anna, or even aiming for something bolder, like hospital administration. One evening, as they sat side by side going over practice exams, Anna nudged her and said, "You know, you're already halfway there. You've got the knowledge and the experience. All you need is the diploma." Camilla smiled, but didn't answer. Still, the seed had been planted. Meanwhile, at work, her influence grew steadily. She suggested a communication log between the night and day shifts. Simple, color-coded, and handwritten at first. Within 2 weeks, it had caught 3 critical errors before they reached patients. Camilla didn't seek credit, but the team took notice. Dr. Santos began including her in more strategic conversations. "Your perspective is unique," he told her after one such meeting. "You see problems from the ground up." By her second month, she was helping lead protocol reviews and even training newer assistants on safety procedures. One Friday, after a particularly productive meeting, Dr. Santos asked to speak with her privately. "Camilla, I've been offered a position at the regional hospital to lead their entire patient safety division," he said. Her stomach fluttered, unsure of what was coming. "And I recommended you to join me as their new night shift quality coordinator." Camilla blinked, stunned. "Coordinator?" It felt surreal. "But I've only just started," she whispered. "And in just 2 months, you've made more impact than some have in 2 years," he replied. The offer wasn't just a promotion. It was a vote of absolute confidence in her ability to lead. That night, Camilla could barely sleep. Her thoughts swirled between fear and excitement. A coordinator role, her own team, more autonomy, greater responsibility. It was everything she'd never dared to imagine. And yet it came with risks. The regional hospital was across the city, a bigger institution with stricter expectations. She worried about starting over in a new environment, proving herself again, managing staff who might question her background. At breakfast, she told Anna and João about the offer. Anna's reaction was instant. She jumped from her chair and hugged her. "Camilla, that's huge! You have to say yes!" João, more thoughtful, asked, "Would we have to move?" Camilla nodded. "Eventually, probably. The commute would be too long otherwise. But with the new salary, we could afford a better place, closer to the hospital." João smiled, proud. "We'll help however we can. This is your moment." Still, Camilla hesitated. "I don't want to risk our stability," she said quietly. "What if I'm not ready?" Anna reached across the table and took her hand. "Camilla, you spent years carrying all of us. Now it's time to carry yourself. You're more than ready." Over the next 2 weeks, she visited the regional hospital, met with leadership, and toured the facility. The safety program was in its infancy. There was room to build, to shape it from the ground up. During a meeting with the hospital's director, she was told, "Your work in the Rodrigo Mendez case is known across our network. We're not just hiring a coordinator. We're bringing in someone who's proven they can lead under pressure." Camilla left that meeting feeling like the walls around her self-doubt were starting to crack. On the last day of the deadline, she sat across from Dr. Santos and gave her answer. "I'll accept, but on one condition." He raised an eyebrow. "I want to implement a training program for support staff, cleaners, techs, anyone overlooked. They see everything. They deserve to be empowered." A smile spread slowly across Dr. Santos's face. "That's exactly why I wanted you on board," he said. "Democratizing safety. I love it." Camilla's condition wasn't a formality. It was personal. She remembered what it felt like to be invisible, to witness wrongdoing and feel powerless. No one had trained her to notice medical errors or patient deterioration, but she had learned through necessity, observation, and care. If others like her could be equipped with even basic safety knowledge, they could become a powerful frontline defense. Her idea was to create short, accessible training modules tailored for support staff, covering topics like medication labeling, infection risk awareness, and how to report irregularities. Within days of starting at the regional hospital, she got to work, sketching out the framework, talking to staff across departments, collecting input. The reception was mixed at first. Some managers questioned the need, others worried about time and budget. But Camilla knew how to navigate doubt. She'd done it all her life. With support from Dr. Santos and a few key allies, she secured approval for a pilot version of the program. Meanwhile, she moved into a modest apartment near the hospital with Anna and João, whose lives were blossoming in their own ways. Anna was now in her final year of nursing school, and João had just received a scholarship to study engineering with a focus on healthcare infrastructure. The siblings had grown, and so had Camilla. The girl who once cried in the shadows of São Vicente Hospital's corridors was now leading initiatives that would shape care for hundreds of patients. On her first day officially as coordinator, Camilla stepped into her new office. Her name was etched on a plaque outside the door. She placed a photo of Anna and João on her desk, took a deep breath, and smiled. She wasn't surviving anymore. She was building something lasting. Within just a few weeks of stepping into her new role, Camilla proved that her promotion was no fluke. The hospital's night shift began to transform under her guidance. She implemented small, practical changes with huge impact. Updated shift transition logs, clear medication handoff protocols, and routine safety huddles for the overnight staff. But the most radical of all was her support staff safety training pilot. At first, some people scoffed. A training program for janitors, laundry workers, orderlies. They're not clinical, one senior nurse muttered. But Camilla didn't flinch. She knew firsthand how often those workers noticed red flags long before anyone else. "They're the eyes and ears of this place," she said during a meeting. "They see everything." With quiet determination, she recruited volunteers from housekeeping and transport. The sessions were simple but eye-opening. How to spot signs of medication misplacement, infection risk from biohazard exposure, and especially how to safely report concerns without fear of retaliation. The results were immediate. Within the first month, 2 potential incidents were flagged by a cleaner and a technician. Both averted before reaching the patient. The hospital's leadership took notice. "You've created something special," Dr. Santos said one evening, reviewing the reports. "Other departments are asking if they can participate." Camilla nodded. "That's the goal. Everyone should feel like they have a role in patient safety." Meanwhile, her connection with the staff deepened. No one saw her as just a cleaner anymore. She was a leader, a resource, and more importantly, someone who listened. Even skeptical managers began to soften. Camilla's humble authority carried more weight than any title. One Friday morning, after a particularly well-received training session, a young nurse named Julia approached her quietly. "Can I talk to you sometime?" she asked. "I think I messed up last night, and I don't know what to do." Camilla smiled gently and nodded. "Of course. Come by my office anytime." Julia returned that afternoon, visibly nervous, wringing her hands. "I administered a medication last night, followed all the protocols, but the patient had a reaction. Mild, but unexpected. I've been replaying it in my head non-stop." Camilla listened patiently, nodding as the nurse recounted each step. "Did you double-check the dosage, route, and the patient file?" "Yes," Julia replied. "But the allergy wasn't documented. I didn't know." Camilla leaned forward. "Then you didn't make a mistake. You followed procedure. The system failed, not you. But now you know how important those undocumented details can be. So we fixed the system." Julia's shoulders relaxed slightly. "I was so scared. I thought I wasn't cut out for this." Camilla smiled warmly. "Being scared means you care. That's a good sign. The difference between a good professional and a great one isn't being perfect. It's learning from each experience." The conversation stuck with Camilla long after Julia left. She remembered what it was like to doubt herself, to wonder if she belonged. And now, here she was, guiding others through the same storm. The experience also gave her an idea. What if they created a system to catch those undocumented allergies before medication was administered? She brought the proposal to the team. A double-check protocol combining nurse interviews with patient families and a real-time review of charts. It was simple, replicable, and scalable. When they implemented it, 3 more hidden allergies were uncovered in just the first week. That evening, Camilla sat in her office and stared out the window. The city lights flickered below, and for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to dream beyond just her department. Maybe one day her work could influence more than just one hospital. Maybe systems across the country, maybe even the world, could benefit from the lessons she had learned cleaning floors, listening in silence, and finally, finding her voice. A few weeks later, Camilla's routine was interrupted by an unexpected visit from Dr. Santos. He knocked lightly on her office door, carrying a folder under one arm and a hesitant look on his face. "Got a minute?" he asked. "Of course," she replied, gesturing him in. He sat down and leaned forward. "Do you remember Dr. Miranda from the Metropolitan Hospital?" Camilla nodded. "Biggest private hospital in the region, right?" Dr. Santos smiled slightly. "Exactly. He just offered me the position of medical director there. It's a huge opportunity." Camilla blinked. "That's incredible. You deserve it." But he didn't return the smile. Instead, he opened the folder and slid a document across the table. "And I want you to come with me." She stared at the title, Director of Quality and Safety, Night Shift. "Me?" But I've only been coordinator for a few months, she said, stunned. Camilla, your training program is being requested by 5 other hospitals. Your allergy check protocol is already saving lives, and you've earned the respect of everyone here, not because of your title, but because of your actions. You lead, you care, you change things. Camilla felt her breath catch. Director. It was a title that once belonged to people she only saw in distant meetings, people she cleaned offices for after hours. Now, it was within reach. It's a bigger hospital, more pressure, more eyes, Dr. Santos added. And you should know, there's something else. His voice grew quiet. We've worked together for over a year, and I've admired your professionalism, your ethics, but somewhere along the way, that admiration became something more. Camilla froze, heart thudding. She had always sensed something there, but neither of them had dared acknowledge it. If we were both directors, he continued carefully, we'd be equals. No more hierarchy. But I want to be clear, this offer stands regardless of how you feel about me personally. Camilla sat in stunned silence, absorbing the weight of his words. A promotion and a confession, delivered with clarity, honesty, and respect. I appreciate your honesty, she said slowly, choosing her words with care. And I won't lie, I've thought about it too. But this complicates things, doesn't it? He nodded. Only if we let it. She glanced down at the proposal again, its ink sharp and decisive. Director. A team of her own. Resources she could only dream of at San Vicente. A seat at the table where real decisions were made. And then there was the personal side, the possibility of love, of connection, something she had buried for so long in favor of responsibility. That evening, at home, she sat across from Anna and João, the contract unopened on the kitchen table. What is it? João asked, already sensing its importance. Camilla explained everything. The new role, the change of hospital, and finally, hesitantly, the personal offer behind the professional one. Anna's eyes widened, a knowing smile playing on her lips. So he finally said something, huh? Anna, Camilla groaned. You've been glowing every time you mentioned his name for a year. Camilla laughed despite herself. João leaned forward. You always told me the right thing isn't always the easy thing. Maybe it's time to apply that to your own life too. Her siblings' support gave her strength, but she still needed time. Over the next week, she poured herself into her work, spoke with her team, and considered what it would mean to leave the hospital she had helped transform. In the end, she realized something simple but powerful. She wasn't the same girl who had doubted her place. She was a woman who had earned every step, and now she had the right to take the next one. Not with fear, but with purpose. The following Monday, Camilla met Dr. Santos in his office, her decision heavy but clear. I'll accept the position, she said, but we need boundaries. Professionally, our roles come first. Any personal connection, if it develops, stays outside the workplace. No gray areas. Dr. Santos nodded solemnly. Agreed. Your professionalism is part of what made me respect you in the first place. A week later, Camilla began transitioning out of her role at the regional hospital. Her team surprised her with a farewell breakfast. Nothing fancy, just coffee, fresh bread, and quiet gratitude. Paula, one of the night nurses, stood up and spoke for the group. You made us feel like we mattered, like we were part of something bigger. I never thought a safety coordinator would ask me for my opinion, but you did, and it changed how I see my job. Camilla thanked everyone, her voice thick with emotion. That night, she took one last walk through the hospital halls, now so familiar, almost like an extension of herself. She paused outside the ICU, where she had once watched Rodrigo fumble with a vial and wondered if she should say something. That decision had started everything. At the exit, she found Dr. Santos waiting by the elevator. Ready? He asked. Not sure, she admitted, but I'm going anyway. They smiled, neither of them saying more. As they stepped outside into the cool night air, Camilla took a breath that felt like the closing of one book and the opening of another. The Metropolitan Hospital loomed ahead, larger, shinier, more intense, but so was she now. Her first day as Director of Quality and Safety at the Metropolitan Hospital was a whirlwind. The building itself was modern and massive, with automated systems, high-tech monitoring, and an air of prestige that San Vicente had never possessed. Her office was sleek and spacious, with a panoramic view of the city. A small plaque on the door read, Dr. Camila Oliveira, Quality and Safety. She sat behind the desk, trying to feel like she belonged, but the magnitude of the role pressed on her shoulders like a weight. Just before noon, a bouquet of flowers arrived with a note. For new beginnings, F. She smiled, touched by the quiet support. But with prestige came politics. The Metropolitan was known not only for excellence, but also for its competitive culture. At her first leadership meeting, she introduced herself confidently, but the reception was mixed. Some department heads were cordial. Others barely looked up from their laptops. After the meeting, Dr. Pereira, head of cardiology, muttered within earshot, "She's 28, came from a public hospital." Another doctor replied with a smirk, "Interesting hiring criteria." Camilla heard it all. She kept walking. Later, she met with her new team. Most were younger. Many had never worked under a director who wasn't a physician. She addressed them directly. "Titles are important, but behavior is more important. I'm here to help us do better, for our patients, not for politics." Over the next few days, she worked harder than ever, staying late to learn the hospital's procedures, meeting with every department, and reviewing existing safety protocols. At night, she'd return home exhausted but determined. The same doubts that once kept her cleaning in silence were back, but now she had the experience to face them. She'd fought for this seat, and no undercurrent of judgment was going to take it from her. It didn't take long for resistance to surface more openly. Camilla had begun implementing a new surgical safety protocol, a checklist to be reviewed pre-op, post-op, and before closing each surgical incision. The system was based on proven international models, but it slowed down the procedure time slightly, and that alone was enough to trigger complaints. During the second week, in a packed morning meeting, Dr. Ribeiro, head of surgery, crossed his arms and addressed the room. "We've been operating just fine for years. These extra steps feel unnecessary. Slows us down." Camilla didn't flinch. "Prevention may slow you down by 5 minutes, doctor, but it also reduces post-operative complications by 40%. I have the data to support it." He raised an eyebrow. "Data from where? Government hospitals?" His tone dripped with disdain. Camilla straightened. "No, doctor, from the World Health Organization, from Johns Hopkins. I'll gladly forward the studies." The room grew quiet. Some staff nodded, others avoided eye contact. Dr. Miranda, the general director, remained silent. After the meeting, Camilla headed to the restroom, needing a moment alone. She looked at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back wore a tailored suit and an ID badge that read, "Director." But inside, she felt like the same girl who used to clean floors at 3 a.m., afraid to speak. "You belong here," she whispered. "Don't let them shake you." When she exited, she found Dr. Miranda waiting by the door. "Can we speak in my office?" Once inside, he got straight to the point. "You're receiving pushback, that's expected, but I'm also hearing concerns." Her stomach clenched. "Concerns about your history with Dr. Santos, your rise, your qualifications, your relationship." The word hung in the air like a gavel. Camilla's throat went dry. She had prepared herself for criticism, for being underestimated, but not for this. "Dr. Miranda," she said evenly, "my work stands on its own. My history with Dr. Santos has never influenced my professional decisions. He recommended me, yes, but I earned this position based on performance." Dr. Miranda raised a hand. "I'm not questioning your capability. I reviewed your results before hiring you. You've achieved more in 3 years than most do in 10. He paused. "But perception matters here. This is a high-visibility institution. Every whisper becomes an echo." Camilla nodded slowly, swallowing the indignation. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm not asking you to prove anything, just to be cautious. Keep a clear boundary. Maintain transparency. Silence the rumors before they grow." Camilla thanked him and left, feeling a knot tighten in her chest. That night, she sat with Anna over tea and vented her frustration. "I hate that my competence is being questioned because of who I work with." Anna, now a nurse herself, listened quietly. "Do you think you'd be under this much scrutiny if you were a man?" Camilla blinked. "Probably not." Anna leaned in. "Then don't let their discomfort define you. You don't owe anyone an explanation for being brilliant and respected." Camilla appreciated the words, but they didn't erase the tension she now felt in every interaction at work. Her moments with Felipe became stiff, overly professional. In trying to protect her career, she was sacrificing the very connection that had helped her find the courage to take these steps in the first place. Something had to change. Either she would keep hiding from judgment or she would face it head-on, just as she had with Rodrigo, with Dona Rosa, with herself. The next day, she made a decision. It was time to speak, and not in whispers. At the next leadership meeting, Camilla arrived early, placing a USB drive into the projector system. As the rest of the team filtered in, she stood at the head of the table, composed, direct, and completely unshaken. When everyone settled, she began without preamble. I've heard the comments, I've felt the glances, and I know that some of you have questions about who I am, how I got here, and whether I deserve this seat. A few eyes widened. Dr. Santos looked down, hands folded. Dr. Miranda gave her a slow nod of approval. Camilla clicked the remote. A slide appeared on the screen showing impact metrics. A 60% drop in medical errors, 45% fewer hospital-acquired infections, 30% reduction in patient readmission. These aren't projections. These are results. Outcomes from the last 5 years of my work at multiple institutions. Another click showed cost savings, patient satisfaction scores, and implementation timelines. Then she spoke plainly. I started at the bottom. I cleaned floors. I emptied biohazard bins. I watched silently as systems failed patients. And I learned. I listened. I acted when no one else would. Murmurs moved across the room, but no one interrupted. When I spoke up about Rodrigo Mendez, I was punished, reassigned to the basement. And yet I stayed. I worked. I built programs. Because patient safety isn't about titles or degrees. It's about vigilance, accountability, and action. She paused, letting the words sink in. Yes, I work closely with Dr. Santos. He has mentored me, challenged me, supported me, but my role here, my presence here, is mine, earned through data, decisions, and outcomes. If you want to question my methods, I welcome it. But if you question my right to be here based on gossip, that's your bias speaking, not my record. She clicked the last slide. Discussion based on data only. Let's work. The room fell into a heavy, reflective silence. Dr. Miranda was the first to clap, slowly, deliberately. Then others joined. Not all, but enough to shift the tone. Even Dr. Ribeiro looked visibly uncomfortable, his prior smugness replaced with a reluctant nod. When the meeting ended, several team members approached her with questions. Not about her past, but about her proposals. Real engagement, real dialogue. Felipe caught up with her later in her office. That was extraordinary, he said, eyes full of admiration. It had to be done, Camilla replied, her tone softer now. I was letting their doubts shape how I acted. I was hiding again, and I promised myself I'd never do that again. He stepped closer. So what does that mean for us? She looked at him fully, without hesitation. It means I'm done pretending. If something's real, I'm not going to let fear of perception ruin it. Felipe reached for her hand. Then let's move forward, with boundaries, with transparency, but also with honesty. She nodded. As long as we're always clear that work comes first, that's non-negotiable. Agreed, he said, but it doesn't mean we have to ignore what's real outside these walls. That weekend they went out to dinner, not in secret, not in disguise, but in public, like two people exploring something new with nothing to hide. There were still glances, of course, still whispers, but for the first time, Camilla didn't feel ashamed or threatened by them. She had told her story, reclaimed her space, and silenced the rumors with facts. And with that weight lifted, she was free to move forward, on her terms. Over the next few weeks, she doubled down on her work. The allergy check protocol was expanded to all departments, and she began speaking at conferences, drawing attention from other hospital networks. It was becoming clear, Camilla was no longer a promising new leader. She was becoming a force in national healthcare reform. 2 months into her directorship at the Metropolitan Hospital, Camilla's name was gaining traction well beyond its walls. Her safety protocols were adopted by other institutions within the network, and her emphasis on inclusive training, empowering janitorial, technical, and auxiliary staff, was making headlines in healthcare journals. She was invited to speak at regional panels, university seminars, and webinars on patient safety. But perhaps the most surreal moment came when she received an email from the Ministry of Health. They wanted her to join a national task force for hospital safety reform. Camilla reread the message 5 times before calling Anna, who had just finished her first day as head nurse at a community hospital. "You won't believe this," Camilla said, her voice trembling. They want me to help design safety protocols for hospitals across the country. Anna let out a loud cheer over the phone. Camilla, you're shaping the future of healthcare. This is huge. That night, as she sat on the couch beside Felipe, reviewing the details of the ministry's proposal, he looked at her with a proud, almost reverent gaze. You're not just leading a team anymore, he said. You're leading a movement. Camilla laughed, brushing off the compliment, but deep down, she felt it too. It wasn't just about her career now. It was about legacy, impact, and justice. The very structures that once excluded her were now asking for her guidance. At the next hospital board meeting, Dr. Miranda publicly acknowledged her new appointment. Director Oliveira will now serve as a member of the National Safety Commission. We are proud to have one of our own shaping national policy. As the room applauded, Camilla caught a glimpse of her younger self in her mind's eye. The girl wiping down hallways at 3 a.m., invisible to the world. And now, every spotlight seemed to point directly at her. Not because she sought it, but because she had earned it. The work with the ministry was demanding. Camilla balanced her hospital responsibilities with weekly briefings, drafting policy recommendations, and coordinating pilot programs in rural and under-resourced hospitals. Her schedule was brutal, but every time she visited a facility implementing her protocols and saw a team, cleaners, nurses, and doctors, working side by side with shared accountability, it made every sleepless night worthwhile. One morning, she received a message from Julia, the young nurse she had mentored months earlier. Camilla, I wanted you to be the first to know. I've been accepted into the ICU specialization program. Thank you for believing in me. Camilla replied instantly, heart full. The ripple effect of her work was real, measurable not just in data, but in people's lives. That evening, as she returned home, she was greeted by Anna and João with grins too wide to ignore. What are you two hiding? She asked suspiciously. Anna handed her an envelope. Inside was a letter of acceptance into a public health graduate program. But the name on the letter wasn't João's. It was hers. What is this? She asked, eyes wide. João stepped forward. We applied for you. Collected your publications, recommendation letters, everything. Dr. Santos helped. We figured it's time you had the title to match your work. Camilla was speechless, overwhelmed by the audacity and love behind the gesture. You didn't have the right to, she began, but her voice cracked, not with anger, but emotion. Anna hugged her. Yes, we did. You opened doors for us. Now we're opening one for you. Camilla sank into a chair, the letter trembling in her hand. For years, she had poured every ounce of herself into lifting others. And now, her siblings were returning that faith, pushing her to claim what was always hers. That night, sitting with Felipe at dinner, she told him the news. So, graduate school? He asked, grinning. She smiled. Yeah, it's time. 6 months later, on a sunlit Saturday morning, Camilla adjusted her academic gown in front of a mirror, her breath shallow with disbelief. The name card she wore read, Camila Oliveira, MC, Public Health. João stood behind her, straightening the collar with quiet pride, while Anna wiped away a tear she wasn't even trying to hide. Mestre Camila, João said teasingly, has a nice ring to it. She laughed, but it felt surreal. In her hands, she held the final copy of her thesis, a detailed implementation study on hospital safety frameworks, integrating support staff, accepted by 2 prestigious journals, and praised for its innovation and human-centered approach. The ceremony itself was overwhelming. The auditorium filled with applause when her name was called, but what caught her most off guard was the group that came to support her. Dr. Santos, of course, Sophia, her first mentor in the quality department, Paula, her former night nurse colleague, and even Dona Rosa, her old cleaning supervisor, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. But most surprising of all was Rodrigo. Now reformed and working as a compliance trainer for hospital technicians, he waited quietly outside after the ceremony. Camilla, he said as she approached, I've been following your journey. What you did, it saved me too in a way. Thank you for not letting me keep going down that path. She didn't know what to say, but maybe she didn't need to. They shared a quiet moment of mutual understanding. 2 people once on opposite ends of a terrible decision, now standing on the other side of growth. That evening, back at home, Camilla received a call from the Ministry of Health. We'd like you to join the National Council on Patient Safety, said the voice on the other end. Your work is changing how we think about safety in Brazil. She blinked, stunned. A national position, a voice in shaping policy for every hospital in the country. Camilla accepted the invitation without hesitation. She knew now what her mission was, beyond titles, beyond hospitals, beyond the daily metrics. It was about creating a culture where every voice mattered, where a janitor could save a life, where a nurse could ask for help without shame, where leadership meant listening more than commanding. In the months that followed, she helped draft legislation that made safety training for all hospital staff, not just clinicians, a national standard. Her model of inclusive safety became a reference not just in Brazil, but in neighboring countries. Invitations poured in, from universities, from policy think tanks, even from the World Health Organization. But the most powerful moment came when she received a message from Clara, a young janitor at the Metropolitan Hospital, who had once timidly knocked on Camilla's office door. "I reported something last night," Clara wrote. "A nurse had given a wrong dose, and no one noticed. But I remembered your training. I spoke up, and the patient is okay. They told me I did the right thing." Camilla read the message twice, her eyes burning. It wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about the cycle continuing, one brave act inspiring another. She responded to Clara with only a few words. "You're exactly who I was years ago, and I'm so proud of you." That night, Felipe found her standing by the window, quiet. "You all right?" he asked. She turned, tears in her eyes, but a smile on her lips. "Yeah, I'm just thinking about how it all started. A girl pushing a cleaning cart, scared to speak. And now you're rewriting the system," he said, pulling her into a hug. "Now you're showing the world what true leadership looks like." And as the lights of the city shimmered outside their home, Camilla knew this was only the beginning, not just of her journey, but of the hundreds, maybe thousands, she would help ignite.